When it comes to fast-paced action games that prioritize pure intensity over realism or restraint, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance on Xbox 360 is still one of the most talked about titles in gaming history, and in this video we're answering the question that matters in 2026. Is it still worth playing today? Developed by PlatinumGames and set in the Metal Gear universe, this spin-off completely abandons the slower stealth-focused identity of the mainline series and instead transforms it into a high-speed character action game built around precision sword combat, aggressive momentum, and some of the most over-the-top boss encounters ever designed. Even now, more than a decade later, it remains a game that people reference not just for nostalgia, but because there still isn't anything else quite like it. At its core, Revengeance is built around one simple idea. You are not meant to hide. You are meant to dominate. You play as Raiden, a cybernetic ninja whose entire combat philosophy revolves around speed, aggression, and cutting everything in your path to pieces with a high-frequency blade. The moment-to-moment gameplay is built on this constant forward momentum, where standing still is almost always a mistake. Enemies don't wait for you. Arenas are designed to keep you moving, and combat flows in a way that constantly pushes you to stay on the offensive. Even in 2026, that design philosophy still feels refreshing compared to many modern action games that either slow things down with cinematic interruptions or overwhelm players with overly complex systems. The most important mechanic that defines the entire experience is Blade Mode, which allows you to manually slice enemies with precision by slowing down time and aiming your cuts. What sounds like a gimmick on paper is actually one of the most satisfying systems ever implemented in a character action game. It turns every encounter into a choice between efficiency and creativity. Do you finish enemies quickly to regain health and resources, or do you take the time to carefully slice them apart in the most optimal way possible? That tension between style and practicality gives every fight a sense of control that still feels unique today. Few games, even in the modern era, allow you to interact with combat at this level of granular precision while still maintaining speed and flow. Then there's the parry system, which is arguably the backbone of high-level play. Unlike traditional dodge and block systems, Revengeance demands that you meet attacks head-on with perfectly timed directional inputs. When it clicks, the combat transforms completely. You stop reacting defensively and start dictating the pace of every encounter. Successfully chaining parries into counters creates a rhythm that feels almost musical, especially when combined with the game's aggressive pacing. Even in 2026, this system holds up incredibly well because it rewards mastery without requiring complicated inputs or long learning curves. It is simple to understand, but difficult to perfect, which is exactly what gives it longevity. Of course, no discussion of this game is complete without the boss fights, which remain some of the most iconic encounters in action game history. Each major battle feels like its own self-contained spectacle, with unique mechanics, personality-driven dialogue, and escalating intensity. These bosses are not just damage sponges or pattern-based challenges. They are characters with ideology, emotion, and narrative weight, often expressed mid-fight through monologues that blur the line between gameplay and performance. The result is a series of encounters that feels less like traditional boss fights and more like interactive duels in an action film that refuses to slow down. Even today, very few games match this level of theatrical design combined with mechanical depth. The soundtrack deserves special attention because it plays a massive role in why the game feels so unforgettable. Each major boss has a dynamic theme that evolves based on the phase of the fight, often reflecting the emotional state or philosophy of the character you are battling. The music is not just background noise. It is an active part of the combat feedback loop. When the tempo rises as a fight intensifies, it directly impacts how the player experiences tension and urgency. This is one of the reasons why even replaying the game in 2026 still feels exciting, because the audio design reinforces every successful parry, every counterattack, and every finishing blow. However, playing Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance on Xbox 360 today does come with some clear limitations. Visually, the game is very much a product of its time. Environments are functional, but not particularly detailed. Textures are low resolution by modern standards, and character models, while stylistically strong, lack the fidelity players have grown used to in newer releases. Frame rate stability can also fluctuate during particularly intense sequences, especially when multiple effects are on screen at once. If you are coming from modern hardware or PC-enhanced versions, you will notice these differences immediately. That said, none of these technical limitations truly undermine the core experience. This is a game that was never dependent on graphical realism to begin with. Its identity is rooted in stylization, exaggerated action, and mechanical clarity. The visual presentation still communicates combat effectively, which is ultimately what matters most. You always know what is happening, you always understand enemy positioning, and the readability of combat remains strong even after all these years. In many ways, the simplicity of the presentation actually helps the game age more gracefully than titles that relied heavily on cutting-edge visuals at the time. The story itself is intentionally over the top, and that is part of its appeal. It follows Raiden as he becomes entangled in a world of private military corporations, political manipulation, and philosophical debates about war, control, and identity. But instead of presenting these ideas in a grounded or subtle way, the game delivers them through dramatic speeches, mid-combat monologues, and exaggerated character moments that often border on theatrical absurdity. This tone can feel jarring at first, but once you understand that the game is fully committed to its own style, it becomes part of the charm. It is not trying to be realistic, it is trying to be memorable. One of the reasons Revengeance continues to be discussed in 2026 is because how distinct its identity is compared to modern action games. Many contemporary titles either aim for cinematic realism or extremely complex combat systems that require extensive tutorials and mechanical knowledge. Revengeance sits in a rare space where it is immediately accessible, but still offers a high skill ceiling for players who want to master it. You can pick it up and feel powerful within minutes, but truly mastering parries, combos, and resource management takes time and practice. Replay value is another area where the game still holds up surprisingly well. Higher difficulty modes completely change how you approach encounters, forcing you to rely more heavily on parries and perfect timing rather than brute force. Enemy placement and aggression patterns shift in ways that make repeat playthroughs feel meaningfully different. This is a game that encourages mastery rather than simple completion, and that design philosophy keeps it relevant even in a modern gaming landscape dominated by one-and-done experiences. So is Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance still worth playing in 2026 on Xbox 360? The answer is yes, but with context. If you are looking for cutting-edge visuals, modern quality of life features, or polished cinematic experiences that matches today's AAA standards, this is not going to compete on those terms. But if what you want is one of the most unique action games ever created, with unmatched combat flow, unforgettable boss fights, and a level of style that still hasn't been replicated, then it absolutely deserves your time. Even in 2026, Revengeance remains less of an outdated relic and more of a cult classic that continues to stand on its own identity. It is loud, it is chaotic, it is exaggerated, and it fully commits to everything it tries to do, and that commitment is exactly why it still works. If you enjoyed this breakdown and found it helpful, make sure to give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. It genuinely helps the channel grow and lets me know what kinds of videos you want to see next. And if you want something extra, make sure to check out my Patreon, where my latest exclusive dives into the question of whether or not Xbox exclusives are actually dead and what that means for the future of the platform. It's a deep dive you won't want to miss, and your support over there helps me keep making these kinds of videos possible. At the end of the day, Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance is still proof that gameplay-first design, strong identity, and pure creative confidence can outlast generations of hardware. It may not be perfect, but it doesn't need to be. It just needs to be itself. Until next time, game on.